Welcome to Holistic Health with Melissa, a podcast for women who are ready to stop living in survival mode and start truly healing. I'm Melissa, a holistic trauma and anxiety coach, and here we talk about all things holistic healing for trauma, anxiety, and the nervous system. We blend science, scripture, and somatic work to help you regulate your body, renew your mind, and reconnect with the peace God designed for you to live in. If you're craving real healing, freedom from symptoms, and joy that reaches your mind, body, and spirit, you're in the right place. So my background is in nursing, like I shared with you, and my specialty now is helping women recover from trauma and getting to the root of trauma, and all the symptoms that come along with that. And what I see is this people-pleasing busyness kind of as like almost like a set of armor, because it's like so scary to be still. And I ask women a lot, like, what are you afraid of is going to happen when you're still? Hi, friend. Do you feel like you've done all the things? You've tried therapy, the pills, the diets, the supplements, and you're still wondering, why do I not feel like myself? You have a good life, but something still feels missing. You don't feel fully energized, alive, peaceful, or free, and deep down, you know you were made for more. That's exactly why I created the Freedom Collective. This unique 6-month coaching experience with community and one-to-one support is designed to help women stop forcing healing and finally feel safe in their bodies again. We blend science, scripture, somatic healing, nervous system restoration, mindset work, and Christ-centered identity to heal the whole person, body, soul, and spirit. Because true healing isn't just symptom management. It's becoming rooted, rewired, and restored so you can live from peace, freedom, and overflow. If this sounds supportive to you, check out the details on my website and reach out for a free clarity call to see if it's a good fit for you. I would love to walk alongside you. Welcome, everybody, to Holistic Health with Melissa. I am so excited that you are here. Today, we are sitting down with Susan Wiesemann. She is an author, speaker, and founder of The Light of the Lamp, a business ministry born as a result of God healing her incurable autoimmune disease, brought on by trying to be Superwoman. Now she helps other women set healthy boundaries, discover wellness habits that can transform lives, shift mindsets, and implement strategies to prevent burnout. Susan uses her experience as a former Fortune 500 marketing executive, former wellness coach, and full-time working mom to bring light to Christian women who feel overwhelmed by the pressures of trying to be Superwoman. She released her first book, Undoing Superwoman, in October 2025. Susan, it is such an honor for you to be here. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Melissa. It's great to be here.
Awesome. I am so excited to dive into this conversation because, that is so relatable. I feel like we were talking before we were recording, and that's one of the things that I think that I see over and over again is this you call it Superwoman. I call it like this busyness badge of honor where people are just like trying, women specifically, because I don't feel like men experience this at the same level that we do, but literally trying to do it all. And I'm so excited to dive into that. But first, I would love to kind of unpack that a little bit. If you could give us some more background and explain to us like a little bit more about how you got here, how you ended up writing a book, and what your experience was through that journey.
Yeah. So the story begins way before this, but the real inflection point in my story was on my 45th birthday. I landed in the emergency room. I did not expect that to happen. And the reason why it happened is because I couldn't breathe. I was about to pass out. I had no idea what was going to happen. And that started a years-long journey trying to figure out what was going on. And the reason why I am here today is because I had this mystery illness And on the outside, my life looked great. I had a successful marketing consulting business. I was married to my best friend, had 2 great kids, lived in a fantastic neighborhood, met weekly for Bible study with my friends, and I sincerely love Jesus. But on the inside, I was an absolute mess. I was a people pleaser, a perfectionist, a control freak, and my anxiety was through the roof. I got sick a lot. And it would always, they would always say, like, well, it's because of stress. And that probably was true, but I wasn't really addressing the root cause of that stress. And so much of that stress was brought on by the fact that I was so much of a people pleaser. I so badly wanted to please everybody around me. So the word no, like, just wasn't even in my vocabulary. I said yes to everything because I thought if I didn't say yes to everything, that it made me a bad friend, a bad businesswoman, a bad Christian. I just put all of the pressure on myself to do everything. And so just years and years and years of that, I guess, took its toll until that day on my 45th birthday. And that's what started me realizing, like, oh, like, I actually thought I was going to die. That day, I really, really thought I was going to die. And I thought, okay, I finally did it. I finally pushed myself too far. And of course, the doctors didn't find anything, nothing. And I spent the next 2 years getting test after test after test until eventually God led me to, and I genuinely say that God, through a series of crazy events, led me to a cardiologist. And it wasn't a heart problem, but led me to this cardiologist who said, he gave me a diagnosis. And he said, when I see otherwise healthy women your age get what you have, it's because they're trying to be a superwoman. And it was like a gut punch to the stomach. And it finally explained why I had all these crazy symptoms, because I had this, like I said, like you mentioned in the bio, I had this incurable autoimmune disease. And it was, my heart raced like I was running a marathon 24/7. I discovered that I lost almost 20% of my lung function. So it made it hard to even have a conversation. I had to take a 2-hour nap every day just to get through a day. And just brain fog, muscle weakness that was so severe that I would have to take a break from something as simple as chewing food. And all of those things put together, like, the doctors could see, yeah, the symptoms are real, but what's at the root? Well, the root of it was I was trying to be a superwoman, and trying to be a superwoman short-circuited the part of my brain that controls all of the automatic functions in our body. So lungs breathing, heart beating, GI function, and everything we just take for granted. So by then, God had already taken me on a journey of working with a holistic health practitioner and nudges to go to different ministries and work with them, and just lots of different things. So I had already seen some improvement, but when I got that diagnosis, I finally knew what I was dealing with. Like, I finally knew what the root cause was, so that I could work with God on how to fully heal from it.
Mm. Wow. I feel like that story is so relatable. I hear that same type of story from so many women. Curious what the cardiologist diagnosed you with. Are you able to share that?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing it. It's called dysautonomia. And just from everything I've read, it's the kind of disease that normally people just manage the symptoms and they don't heal from it. But God showed me how to heal from it. And so God put it on my heart to write a book about it. That's why my book is out there. It's called Undoing Superwoman, Losing Total Control to Gain Ultimate Freedom. And I wrote it so that it could be a field guide to freedom for women out there who also feel like they're trying to be a superwoman. So whether they, my case obviously is a very extreme case, but there are lots of women out there. I mean, I don't think I've met a single woman yet who hasn't identified with the concept of trying to be a superwoman. So whether it's as extreme as battling an autoimmune disease or something else, or if it's just battling burnout, both of those are so debilitating.
Yeah.
And they're robbing us of the life that God has for us.
Yeah.
Jesus said, like, I have life for you, life to the full. He didn't say like, well, I gave you life so you could just tread water. Like that's not what he wants for us. Right. He wants to live life to the full. And so I wrote the book so that women could have this roadmap, like, hey, here's what worked for me. So it's through the lens of my healing journey, but it gives practical steps on, here is what worked for me. Maybe it will work for you too. Maybe all of it, maybe parts of it. So it's my offering to try to come alongside women, not as somebody who has everything figured out, but as a compatriot walking alongside you, like that fun friend who just is like, hey, I figured out some stuff. Let me give you some advice. And here you go. So
beautiful. What do you think that superwoman pressure really comes from, especially for Christian women? Where does it come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was actually just recently talking to some friends about that. And I don't know if I can completely address why from a Christian woman perspective, because being a Christian woman is all I've known. But I know that in this digital age, growing up in the time frame when I was getting married, like Martha Stewart Weddings magazine was, everywhere. And it was like, oh my gosh, I want my wedding to be that picture perfect. And I genuinely did. I really wanted my wedding to look that beautiful and felt kind of the pressure to have that. And then after that, it was Pinterest and lifestyle blogs and just on and on and on and on. And now it's, obviously social media is the latest and greatest. And it's setting this incredibly high standard for what our houses should look like and what we should look like. It's all these highlight reels. And it's all a sham, right? Nobody's life is actually perfect. But I think there's this pressure to look that perfect. And if my house isn't perfectly clean and ready for people to come over, then, oh, do I really want to have people over? Or am I going to just avoid extending the invitation? Or can I even show up on social media if I don't look perfect? And on and on and on and on in every single category. And the reality is that I've discovered is every single woman has stuff that she's wrestling with. None of us have figured it all out. And we're all feeling that pressure to just do. And it's like we're all asking each other, like, oh, how are you? And instead of saying how we're actually doing, we're just saying, oh, fine, just busy. And if you don't say that, it's almost like you've broken some unwritten code because you're not going along with what everybody else is saying. Oh yeah, just busy. We don't have to be busy. We don't.
Yeah.
We get to go ahead.
Yeah, being busy is somebody told me recently, being under Satan's yoke. And I have had my own kind of journey with that word over the last several years, but I try not even to say that word because I feel like it speaks, I don't want to speak that over my life, right? Like I intentionally schedule white space into my calendar now where I don't take any calls, where I don't take any meetings with friends or go and do anything, where I literally just have white space like multiple times a week in my calendar, because that way I can breathe a little bit, right? And I
Mm,
think I agree with you that you know, so some of the root of it certainly comes from this comparison game that we get into with social media, but I think it's even a little bit deeper than that. It's like we have this, it's this culture, right? It's this, social media adds to it, but it's like the technological revolution really took this, like brought it to a whole nother level, right? Where we're actually like connected, but we're actually more disconnected than ever, because now we have these like, pocket computers that just go with us everywhere, and um people can reach us at any time, and instead of actually having like conversations, we're just like shooting each other text messages, or instead of inviting people over to your house, and then there's this added pressure of now with like, since I think modern feminism made it so like women also have to work. So you're
yeah,
working outside of the home, you're raising kids, you're trying to be like a good wife, a good steward of your friendships, of your own body, trying to be involved in church, trying to take, Susie to dance practice and Johnny to soccer practice and do all the things. And that's really like, it's just this culture, this age that we live in, where it is kind of ingrained into every aspect of our life, more than just social media. It's everywhere. It's
yeah.
pervasive across all areas of our life. um yeah, so curious, like, did you have an autoimmune diagnosis, or did they just call it like an autoimmune disease?
I mean, they said it was an autoimmune disease.
So they
I
didn't
mean,
call it like, they didn't say, oh, you have lupus, or you have, anything like that.
they said a dysautonomia related disease is how they
Okay.
termed it. Yeah.
Um, did that change your relationship with God? And if so, if like how, if it did it?
Getting the diagnosis or just being on the journey?
Being on the journey, being like having the diagnosis and going through that, how did that change your relationship with God?
Yeah. So, great question. So, going through the whole journey absolutely transformed my relationship with God. Before I got sick, I thought that God was fairly distant. I mean, I knew he loved me, but know how to I didn't know how to have a relationship with him. It was all kind of like a one-way communication. Like I'd pray, I'd send prayers up, but I had zero expectation that I would actually hear anything back from him. And I grew up being told that any communication with God was going to be through the priest at our church. And so I didn't know that I could actually have a conversation and have a relationship with God. So that led me to feel like I was really just distant from him because I didn't know about the two-way version of communication. Well, when I got sick, first of all, I also thought I was just too busy. I thought I was too busy to really spend time with God. So before Bible study every week, I'd pretty much like cram all of my Bible study homework in just before I went to Bible study on Wednesday night. And because I just thought, well, I just have too much going on. I can't have quiet time. Like quiet time felt indulgent. Isn't that crazy? Spending
Yeah.
time with
No,
God
I hear
and
that so much. Yeah.
I'm sure. And it felt legitimate. Like it felt like, no, this is real. I just don't have the time. Well, guess what? I found time to do other things, but I didn't make time to really be intentional about trying to figure out what a relationship with God might look like. Well, then when I got sick, I genuinely, it was so debilitating. Besides working, I really had no strength or capacity to do anything else besides
Mm.
get work done. I couldn't make dinner for my family anymore. I
Mm.
couldn't I couldn't just go run errands. If I ran an
How
errand, I
old
was
were
gonna have
your
to.
kids during this time?
My kids, they were like around fifth grade, ninth grade. I think that was around that time. Yeah. So not little, but still a
Yeah.
very pipital,
Time. Yeah.
very,
Still
yeah, very,
dependent. They needed you
yeah,
still.
very much so. And I couldn't, I couldn't, I just couldn't, be the kind of mom that I wanted to be. So, but it left me with time. I had time now to really figure out, like, okay. And I was so desperate. I was so desperate for answers that I was willing to make the time to figure out what that looked like. And around that same time frame, I learned about a very simple prayer model that probably lots of your listeners know about, but I'll share it anyway because it helped me and it might help them. So it's the acronym for pray. It's called the pray model. So P stands for praise. Thank God for all of the blessings he's brought to your life. R stands for repent, and that is just to ask God to forgive any mistakes you've made. A is for ask, and that's submitting your prayer requests. And then Y is for yield, and that is just listening for what God might have to say. And it was that last part that was particularly hard for me because I was so used to being busy, 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 getting my to-do list done and being an achiever that the thought of sitting still felt agonizing. Because what yield meant in practical terms, the way that this model was explained to me was, set a timer for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever works, and open a journal and just, listen for what God might have to say and write down what you think you're hearing. Oh my gosh. You would think the world was ending with how painful that felt to me at first. Agonizing. But I did it. And the more I did it, the more peace I felt, the more I genuinely felt like I was noticing patterns in what I was hearing. When I asked questions or I submitted prayer requests to God, like I started noticing, like, oh, I'm actually hearing something back from him. This is starting to feel like a real relationship and not just me throwing prayers up into the sky, hoping somebody might hear me. So my relationship with God took a complete 180 for the better, because I finally realized, first of all, I could have a relationship with him. And I also finally realized that because I had a relationship with him, I could finally trust him. I could start to trust him. Because before that, I had faith. I had faith in that God could do anything. I mean, the Bible tells us that nothing is impossible with God. Well, but if you don't have a relationship with somebody, it's impossible to trust them,
Yeah.
that they will do what they say they're going to do in your life. And so that meant that I thought everything was up to me, that I had to do everything, that everything had to be done in my own power.
Mm.
So once I had this shift in my relationship with God, where I actually started to have one, I realized, oh, wait, these things that he's telling me in my prayer time, like these things really are coming to pass. Like we started having a track record together. And then after I realized I could trust him, then I started being able to hand the reins over to him. Like, okay, you take over, God, because the way I've been doing my life has not been working.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you genuinely take the wheel of my car called life. Jesus, take that wheel. And because you're way better at this than I am.
Oh, thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's I don't think that that's uncommon either. I um I did not grow up knowing the Lord. I spent the first 30 years of my life not knowing him, and he pursued me, and that's a whole story in itself. But so I have some idea of like that, what it was like to be that superwoman without, or trying to do all the things without him in my life. um and one of the things that I was just thinking about while you were talking is I feel like, so my background is in nursing, like I shared with you, and I help I my specialty now is helping women recover from trauma and getting to the root of trauma, and all the symptoms that come along with that. And what I see is this people pleasing busyness kind of as like almost like a set of armor, because it's like
Mhm.
so scary to be still. And I ask women a lot, like, what are you afraid of is going to happen when you're still? Because then that's like when your brain kind of like can wander. And if you have time, you can think about things that are maybe not so easy and comfortable to think about, right? Some stuff
Mhm.
that's like painful, and it opens you up to this pain, but it also opens you up into so much freedom on the other side, which you've explained. Like when you have that stillness, I believe I use somatic work. Somatic just means body, and helping women like reconnect their mind to their body. Because when we live in this state of, when we have trauma, our nervous system gets dysregulated. We live in this state of busyness. We can't, we start to just live in our head. We don't actually pay attention to what we're feeling in our body. And that's how you can go for decades and then wind up in the emergency room, is because you were ignoring all the signs that your body was telling you for a really long time until you couldn't ignore it anymore. And so helping women like reestablish the connection between the mind and the body. And I always say the connection between the mind and the body, the bridge between the mind and the body, is the breath. And
Mhm.
just slowing down and actually taking a deep breath like into your belly, is because when you're busy and you're like on the go all the time, you're like breathing up here, you're in that fight or flight, you're in that like constant go, constant stimulation, activation, um gosh, I love that you shared that with your relationship with God. And also I thought when you were talking, gosh, he's just so good, because I feel like that was all divinely orchestrated for your good, for
Mhm.
you to bring you closer to him. Like,
Mhm.
because you weren't gonna do that any other way, right?
Right.
So
Amen.
he's like, I'm gonna, like, if you're not gonna slow down and be still with me and actually spend time with me, then I'm gonna make it so you have to slow down. Which, it's terrible that you had to go through that, but when you look back, like I personally feel like that's such a beautiful testament to his goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree that he let me go through that and used it to draw me closer, because any of the other dashboard warning lights that were going off, I, I wasn't paying attention. And I love what you just said about, I think you totally nailed it with women who have gone through trauma, putting up that armor. And I don't think it's just isolated to women, although I think it is it's probably more prevalent in women. But I absolutely agree that so many of us are going because we don't want to be still with our own thoughts. We don't want to remember that awful thing that happened to us
Mhm.
however many decades ago. And in my case, like there was trauma that I didn't even know was there. Um, and part of that, I there were a lot of things that went into my overarching healing journey, and certainly therapy was a part of that, and so many things. But those are the kinds of things that you have to get to the root of. Okay, what was that trauma, and letting God heal you from that trauma that you experienced, because yeah, otherwise you're just going to keep going, 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 going until your body forces you to pay attention to what you endured.
Yeah. So now, having like come out of that, what does your life look like today now that you're not trying to be superwoman every second of the day?
Well, I would say I have a lot more boundaries.
Mm,
So
boundaries.
I'm very careful about assessing every single opportunity that comes my way and ensuring that I'm doing it for the right reasons.
Mm,
So is it something that, I always talk to God about it. God, is this what you have for me? And if it's something small, very low stakes, like, hey, should I, this person just had a baby. Should I, hop on that meal train and bring them a meal? Well, I don't have to go through like a long prayer process about that, but I can look at that and say, okay, do I have the margin for that?
mm,
Is that something where it's going to bring me joy? Can I joyfully serve in that way? Is my life at a place where I can do that? I have to look at it through those different filters
mm.
first. And, it's gotten to the point where that's easy. Like I can do it quickly with something as simple as that. I honestly used to feel guilty if I didn't sign up for a meal train. Like every meal train that came up, I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
You were a people pleaser, so that makes sense that like you had to, yeah.
Like no joke. One time I signed up for a meal train for people I didn't know. It turns out that the family wasn't even home when I dropped off the meal. And I had spent so much time making the meal for that family that I ended up hitting the drive-through for dinner for my own family because that's how.
Yeah, that was a lesson.
Yeah, yeah. And but did that, was that my wake-up call? No, I'm sure it wasn't. It should have been, but it wasn't. And do you think I was a cheerful giver? No, I was exhausted. I was feeling pretty bitter that the people weren't home. And so that's why, like I really have to look at all of those filters to think about, okay, does this make sense for me in this time of my life? And if it's something as simple as a meal train or whatever, you can do that assessment pretty quickly. If it's something bigger, then I definitely go through a more prayerful process with my husband. And if it's a really big decision, I might involve some friends in praying on it. So that's one of the big things. Also, one of the big differences in my life is now that I know how much processed foods affect my health, sugar, just a lot, I've tried to focus on eating whole foods. All of those affect my body and how it's going to function. And if I'm going to function at full capacity and live life to the full, the way Jesus said he wants us to live, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pursue eating the kinds of things that are going to make me well and feel good and be strong and healthy. And the same goes for like what I consume from a media perspective.
Yeah.
And the way I talk about myself and other people.
Yeah.
So there are so many different ways that we can make sure that we're feeding our bodies, the good things.
Yeah. Whatever's
So
pure
that,
and good, and yeah, whatever that verse
yeah,
is, I can't remember.
whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is noble, let's
Yeah.
focus on those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you
So
think are some of the first signs of that, like that you're headed towards that burnout when you're trying to balance everything?
I think when you're exhausted all the time, when you're feeling bitterness is a really big one that I noticed in my life. That if I noticed somebody else going on vacation and I didn't feel like I had the time to go on vacation, like that jealousy or that bitterness, like, oh my gosh, must be nice to be able to, do XYZ, or, a friend talking about going to get a massage, or just, or feeling bitter about serving, like if I'm signing up for something and I realize like I am just exhausted and bitter and I wish somebody was serving me instead. Like if I'm thinking those kinds of things, that doesn't make me a bad person, but it is a warning sign.
Yeah.
It's a warning sign that I need to take the time to give myself margin, to pause, and to be able to spend time with God so he can speak life into me. And I need to rest. And I need to put my own oxygen mask on
First. Yeah.
first before I put it on everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people a lot, like, you have to assess, and I work through this with my clients, like assessing your motivations for the things that you're doing, your actions. Like, it's not, I get a lot of women who have like physical symptoms, or they want to lose weight, or they want to do this, or, whatever. And they want to just like check the box, just tell me what to do and check the box. And I'm like, no, 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 we're not checking any boxes. We got to like really understand like, why are we doing this? Because if you're just adding another thing, if you're just like, well, just give me a meal plan and I'll just, do that, or give me the supplement recommendations and I'll do that. Like, none of that is going to fix your health or your body or your mind or your soul. Like, none of that is going to do that. It all comes from the internal, and internal always or your external always mirrors your internal. But assessing your motivation and what is driving you to do those things, I always say, like, nothing from pressure, only from pleasure, and not like a self-indulgent pleasure, like, but more of like alignment. But nothing from pressure, only from alignment doesn't sound as good.
Right. That is
So yeah, so I always say nothing from pressure, only from pleasure. Like, is this something that I want to do? Is this serving me? Is this serving my family? And then if those answers are yes, then you can say, is this serving other people? Right? Because we have to put our own oxygen mask on first. Like you said, you have to take care of you first, or you are pouring from an empty cup, which ultimately eventually leads to burnout and winding up in the emergency room when you're 40 on your 45th birthday. Like,
Yep.
so powerful. Well, if you could talk directly to the woman who feels exhausted and like she's trying to do everything but failing at everything, and burning the candle at both ends, so to speak, like sounds like you were for many years. If you could talk directly to her, what would you say?
So, first of all, there is hope. I will say that. And God has a life for you that is so abundant and beautiful. And where I would start from a spiritual perspective, I would start putting that pray model into place and carving out that time and making it a priority so God can speak into who you are, that your identity is not in what you do, your identity is in whose you are. And from a purely practical perspective, since we said that mind, body, and spirit are all connected, knowing that, I will say one of the things that I recommend to women right off the bat, just as something very practical they can do to just feel better and have more stamina, is I recommend eating 100 grams of protein per day. We are all severely under eating protein. And I can tell that when I am exhausted, grumpy, and easily offended, the first thing I do is I assess how much protein have I had today. And 9 times out of 10, probably close to 99% of the time, I have not had enough protein. And then once I do have protein, then it makes me so much more even keeled and able to think more clearly and make the kinds of decisions to be able to put my oxygen mask on first.
Such good advice. Those are powerful tips. Amazing, Susan. Thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of you, how could they do that? Where can we pick up the book, and how can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the book is Undoing Superwoman, Losing Total Control to Gain Ultimate Freedom. You can find it on Amazon. Or I love to speak to women's events and share about burnout, women's wellness, setting healthy boundaries. You can find more information about that at lightofthelamp.org/speaking. And my handle on Instagram is light.of-the-lamp.
Perfect. And we'll put all of those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It has been such a blessing.
It really has. I hope that this episode, I know that this episode will speak directly to who needs it. So such an honor to have you here. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, someone who needs it, like it, leave us a review. This is a movement, not a message. Those reviews, those shares help us get this movement out so we can change the culture and change the world. See you on the next episode. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Holistic Health with Melissa. It is such an honor to have you here. If you found value in today's episode, would you share it with a friend who might need it too and leave us a review? If you have questions or topic suggestions, reach out on social media or visit our website, holistichealthbymelissa.com, and take care. I'll catch you on the next episode.